All right. Hi, everyone. I am so delighted to be speaking with Roxy Garrity today, who is from CareYaya and who's going to talk about her experience as a woman in leadership and her thoughts on the importance of advocating for yourself, having self-confidence, things like that. So I'm really, really delighted to be joined by her today, and I will let her introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me on the show today. I'm Roxy Garrity, the Chief Communications Officer for CareYaya. I am also a former television news reporter, TV correspondent. I've reported stories all over the country, and I'm very excited to be here, and I love your mission.
Thank you so much. Okay, so first up, I just wanted to get your thoughts on this word of self-advocacy because we throw it around a lot, and I'm sure you probably have encountered it yourself in your career. But what exactly does self-advocacy mean to you?
Yeah, certainly. I'm a professional in communications with a passion for effective storytelling and connecting with diverse audiences. Self advocacy to me is the proactive and assertive act of representing oneself. It involves recognizing one's strengths, needs, and aspirations, and then articulating them confidently.
I love
For
that.
me, this means navigating professional and personal spaces with a clear
Mhm.
understanding of my goals, values, and the impact that I want to make. It's about speaking up, setting boundaries, and actively pursuing opportunities that align with my vision, all while staying authentic to myself.
Love that. Well, that's a beautiful description. I love it. And I'd be curious to know a bit more about this. You mentioned a few times the idea of like a vision or a goal. How do you craft that vision? If you feel like you don't exactly know what your goals are, how do you take steps towards isolating those?
Yes, I feel like when I was early on my career, I would have mentors, and
Mm,
these people that I looked up to at the time, it was in journalism specifically. So I would attend different conferences where I could meet these people. Now I feel like it's a little bit easier. You can oftentimes meet these people online and just ask for their advice. If you don't know exactly what your vision is, they can help you see that more clear. And that's how I started. And of course, I would have these goals ever changing in my career. I thought I wanted to do one thing, which was being a TV reporter, and then I went into being a meteorologist. So it oftentimes can change, but that change isn't always bad. In my case, it was great, a great opportunity and a very fun challenge. So I would say get mentors and be open to change.
I love that. That's a really good point. I think mentorship is a huge part of finding your leadership style, finding your confidence because having somebody to bounce ideas off of and pull you out of those challenging situations and help you see sort of the big picture is really helpful.
Yes, and don't
And it
be
sounds
scared to
yeah.
reach out. I feel like oftentimes people early on are not willing to get a mentor just because they're afraid of rejection. But don't I mean, if anything's going to happen, it's just you're not going to get a response. So move on to
Exactly.
the next person. You're bound to get some response and a great mentor.
Exactly. How do you suggest going about reaching out? Obviously you can't just be like, "Hey, I need a mentor. I want you." Like there's got to be
Yeah, so I
a art
joined
to it.
early on in college a organization. It was the Asian American Journalists Association, AAJA. It still exists. It's wonderful. Actually, Melinda Gates just donated $2 million to the group. So I think they have
Amazing.
even more funding to host programs like mentorship programs. But they oftentimes do have these mentorship programs. And I'm also active in my alumni organization, and they too pair people in different stages of their careers with mentors. So join organizations, be active in your professional organization, whatever that may be. And when you graduate, keep in touch with alumni.
That's great here. I like that because I feel like there is this sort of idea that mentorship you have to kind of go find people, but there are communities that exist that you can
Mhm.
easily join and it just takes that effort to go find them and take that courageous step to put yourself out there and just try it out and see if it works.
Yeah, they do the work for you. You could just say, I'm interested in a mentor. Here are what my goals are. And they pair you with a person that they think align with those goals and where you are at. So it takes a lot of the stress out.
Definitely. Now, going back to sort of your career journey, clearly you are a very confident person. You clearly understand, what you bring to the table and what you want out of any situation. How do you think your career in communications has really influenced you in developing that confidence?
I would say it has definitely helped my confidence by providing me opportunities to express my ideas, connect with diverse audiences, and I am continuing to redefine these skills. As a former reporter, I had the opportunity to interview President Barack Obama, President Joe Biden, pop superstar Taylor Swift, but I've also talked to the mom whose kid was kidnapped and she was desperately searching for him, and who's a dad whose son was killed in a school shooting. So I've had to talk to people in all different walks of life and all different stages of their life and be able to provide that empathy and getting to share their stories and communicate what they necessarily couldn't say at the moment to a wider audience, I think has boosted my communication skills. So that would be, I mean, a unique skill set that I've had in my past that's definitely shaped my career today.
Mhm. Wow, that's great to hear. I think you bringing up empathy is really exciting to me because I think that is a huge component of being a leader, being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes. And as a reporter, you literally had to do that. You had to convey their side of the story. That's really interesting. How do you
Absolutely.
think that having that empathy has made you more able to navigate challenging situations?
And I feel like also to touch on the empathy question, being a woman, I think you just possess that empathy that is
Mhm.
unseen and use that skill set to your advantage when you are able to just utilize and be able to connect with other women, other business people, and your peers in your day-to-day career. So I think my leadership style is influenced by empathy and collaboration. I believe diverse perspectives strengthen teams and foster innovation. Specifically after becoming a mom, that was like 6 years ago now, I can empathize better with employees that have kids and
Mhm.
clients of all stages of life. So definitely it all falls back to being empathetic and learning that skill set, which, sorry, transgressing to kind of CareYaya, I feel like that's a skill set that's building in so many students that we
Mhm.
pair up with people in need who need care, and now getting to pass that skill on to the a next generation of caregivers has been truly a blessing in my eyes.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, CareYaya, the work that y'all do is just fantastic. I have some friends who are involved, and it's just amazing organization. And I love
Thank
that you
you.
were able to, as you were talking, tie in your leadership development with this understanding that like you're cultivating the same skills in other people, other young people who are involved in CareYaya. And
Mhm.
it made me think, that I think is the mark of a leader, a strong leader who's able to see the connections between their strengths and what the work that they're doing, because you're recognizing that, oh, these are the strengths that I bring: empathy, the ability to communicate effectively, the ability to um, understand other stories and convey them. And that's what makes me so adept at being a leader in the CareYaya and in the work that I've done. So I think that's um, really striking to see how you're able to be so you really have a deep understanding of your own strengths and what you bring to your career. So I think that is definitely the mark of somebody who is a leader, because they understand, how their strengths amplify their ability to succeed in their job. So
Yeah,
um
and just to touch on that, sorry, but I mean, realizing that what your skill set is and then listening to others, I would have to
mhm,
say it's part of being a leader too. It's not just what you can do, what you can bring to the table, but listen to the other people that work with you and help lift them up because your team's only going to get stronger that way too.
I love that. Exactly. Because I feel like there's one of my professors has this really great perspective on leadership. He says it's not really, we're kind of shifting away from this idea of a leader as being someone who, like, I do these things, but a coach, somebody who sort of helps you do the things. So transitioning from this idea of the leader taking charge to the coach who brings up everybody along with them. And I like that paradigm shift. And it sounds like you were saying some similar things again about being a leader takes the ability to not just advance your own ideas, your own strengths, but the ideas and the strengths of everybody who you are leading.
Definitely. And it goes being a leader to being an effective manager is doing exactly what you said, is realizing the strengths of other people, helping to cultivate that strength for the good of the team. And it's being a cheerleader when somebody's doing a wonderful job and not having that go unnoticed
Mhm.
and not even telling that person, but announcing that to the whole team, like this person did a wonderful job on this, and this is why. And then more people are going to want to do a great job to be recognized. So definitely you got to put other people first. Sometimes I often say when in giving talks like this, and in terms of like being a leader in your organization, that you want to hire people that are better at you in certain skill sets because you
Mhm.
can't do it all, and you have to recognize that, like,
Mhm.
you're only as good as like the best person on your team and certain things, and I can't do this great, but I can hire somebody who can do this amazing. So it's giving up a little bit of yourself in order to benefit like the greater cause.
I like that. Exactly. I really like your point of, acquiring a team of people who have skills in other areas. I think that goes back to what we're talking a bit about with self-advocacy, and that sometimes part of advocating for yourself and your needs is recognizing that you aren't, an omniscient ability leader who can do every single thing. You have your limitations, you have your weaknesses, and being able to recognize that not only helps you bring the best that you can to the table, but also recognize when you do need to reach out and ask for help and advocate for your needs. Um, and so going off that then, out of curiosity, because so we've been talking a lot about, you know, knowing your vision and being able to advocate for yourself in situations. Um, but it seems like we're sort of touching on this as though, from the perspective of somebody who is in an established leadership position, like a manager or a chief communications officer. What about take, for example, a woman who is not in that kind of superior leadership position, but still feels that need to articulate her needs and want and that desire to take on leadership. What advice would you give for someone who is looking to become more of an advocate for themselves?
I would have to say I've been in that situation majority of my career. So
Hmm.
I mean, it's hard. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, and you're gonna be pushed back so much. I started my career prior to the Me Too movement, so I felt
Mm.
like I've seen it all. I've definitely had it hard in some circumstances, but do not let it get you down. Stand up for yourself. Speak out when you feel something is wrong. Don't be scared. I've in my past some of my past positions, instead of speaking out, or if I spoke out and then I um didn't get accomplished what I set out to do, I would then take steps back. But don't let that deter you. I would
Hmm.
just say keep going, keep pushing strong, build a good network within
Hmm.
yourself, a good friendship circle, build those positive relationships of women who you know will build you up when you need it, and don't give up. I mean, really, it's persistence and stay true to yourself, and definitely speak out when you feel like speaking out. I felt like I did not do that at times, and I really wish that I did. So don't be like me in that way. Like, speak out when you feel like the need to.
Gotcha. I love that, and I really want to touch upon that point that you mentioned of being true to yourself. So there is this sort of dichotomy, I feel like, between yes, you really should bring your authentic self to any situation, because that's really where you'll be able to fully embrace your strengths and learn your weaknesses. But on the other hand, sometimes with authenticity comes vulnerability, and in situations where um, others may be looking to take advantage of what you bring, it can be challenging to sort of balance the need for authenticity
Sure.
with the need to protect yourself and your interests, especially as women. So
Yes.
what are your thoughts on that role of authenticity in building confidence?
I mean, if you're not comfortable in certain situations, get yourself out of there. And I don't think your authenticity does have to be compromised in these sorts of situations. If it sounds like if a person doesn't feel like they're not being valued, I mean, take a step back, take a break. I've not renewed contracts in certain positions and certain roles because of that. Like I didn't feel like I was being valued. I wasn't My voice wasn't heard. I couldn't be my authentic self. So there is a place for you. It may not be the place you're in
Mhm,
if it sounds like this is what your situation is, but don't be afraid of change, taking a step back, taking a break and kind of collaborating and putting yourself where you are valued, when where you can be authentic. It's finding the right fit for you. And
mhm.
if you're having any worries, it's probably because you're not in the right place. And don't be afraid to make that change.
Don't be afraid to make that change. That's a really good piece of advice, that I definitely think a lot of women should definitely hear, because there is certainly that aspect of what if I do this and it turns out terribly? What if I'm just overthinking it? What if?
Yeah,
And sometimes you just kind of have to take the leap and go for it, and maybe it'll turn out not the way you expected it, but at least you're not sitting in that stagnated state of what if.
I know. I think women oftentimes overthink things. I know I follow some of the Instagram accounts where it's like a woman employee wrote this email and it's phrased in a certain way, and then men write this, and this is why we take men more seriously, and they have that
Hmm.
authority. And why can't women do this? And women
Hmm.
oftentimes back off and apologize. I know you've probably
Yes.
read the same sorts of things, but
Hmm.
I I think this is the whole reason of this conversation is being confident and
Hmm.
communicating yourself in a true way. And don't let your gender, your race, or whatever set you back. And don't apologize for any of that. Like say what you mean and don't back down.
Don't apologize. That's a really good point. I have definitely felt that myself. That urge to be like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't want to. Ah, sorry, I didn't mean." It's so hard to pull away from that urge to, um,
Exactly. Like, why are you sorry? Like, really, are you really
exactly,
sorry?
exactly.
Why?
There's like it's this urge to like explain yourself. Like
Mhm.
you have to sort of give proof for why you deserve to be heard, or why you're saying things in this way. Um, and yeah, among my friends and stuff, I've known, because I tend to overthink things quite a bit, because I guess there is this fear that like, oh, maybe they saw me in a way that I didn't want them to see me. Maybe
Mhm.
they interpreted that differently, and now I need to give some more explanation for why. Um, but your point of just going for it and just saying what you mean and not worrying about what others think of you is so powerful to hear. And I wish there was a way that we could just amplify this message more, so more people could hear it and
Definitely.
recognize that you don't need to
I
always
mean,
prove
this is
yourself.
the first step of doing that, is
Mhm,
just publicizing other women's points of views that are unapologetic and are saying
mhm.
what they mean, and just getting the word out there, continuing to amplify women's voices, which you're doing. And yes, we appreciate it. All women do.
Thank you. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think that it's really important that more women's stories get heard, like yours, because I mean, I'm sure going back to what you were saying before about how your career was all about telling stories. We
Yes.
can't know. what life is like for people who aren't like us unless we talk to them and amplify their stories. And so for too long, I feel like we have sort of shied away from rather, we have not given women the space to tell our stories. And so because of that, the world has sort of been okay with continuing to suppress us, which
Yeah.
is not the way it should be. So building this confidence to speak out, becoming
Mhm.
more in tune with your strengths and your needs like you are, that is the kind of change we need to see.
Absolutely. I have a 6-year-old daughter, so I want to see that change. I'm very passionate about it. And I don't want her, unfortunately, she doesn't have to, but have to start her career prior to me too. Because now
Mhm,
I feel like since that movement, we do have a greater voice, at least people understand now. Specifically, I came from the journalism world, the TV news world, which we all know now had its share of bad apples in terms of
mhm,
being a male dominated culture and having unfairness towards women, which has then been amplified in many of TV series now that are it's fun to watch, but you have to realize like that's true. Like that happened. I was in
mhm,
it while it was happening. I experienced it. And I wouldn't want any other woman to ever have to experience that. And I mean, women, I can't speak for everyone, are probably experiencing that still to this day, but at
mhm.
least I think more women are standing up and speaking out against it.
Exactly. I agree. It just takes these incremental steps, I feel like. We have
Mhm.
to it's not gonna be a huge change where all of a sudden everybody's gonna be like, "Okay, we're happy now, we're good." But these small steps of one more story here
Mhm.
tells a different side of what it's like to be a woman that we maybe didn't yet get to see. Um, and continuing to break down these stigmas and provide space for women's voices to be given value and given authenticity, kind of like we were saying before, but in terms of not so much you recognizing that you bring your own self to your authentic self to the table, but that others appreciate your authentic self. And so that, that takes a whole nother level of change because that
Yes.
requires the ability to not only cultivate that confidence in yourself to be able to put yourself out there, but also to build the courage and the strength to create a community that is open to hearing your
Mhm.
story. And that's, as someone who is sort of in a leadership position, do you think that's something that you've tried to do in your own company? And if so,
Yeah,
what strategies
absolutely.
have you done?
Yeah, I want to continue to build up voices of people who may be nervous, not exactly know where to go, and try to just guide them in the right direction, in a positive
Mhm,
direction. We, I mean, with CareYaya, there's a ton of college students, so and a lot of female college students in these positions, and we want to shed light on all the positiveness and amplify that on social media by communicating to them, hey, share this story of what you're doing and why it's important to change basically the caregiving industry as a whole. So we just want to hear their stories. And I think that's kind of what we do to amplify that is just by telling them like, hey, can we talk to you? Can I like bring my camera in and let's talk about what you're going through? And we've not only done that with the students, but kind of on the family side too. And unfairly, caregiving in family situation often does fall within the women in the family.
mhm,
And so, for example, let me like better explain this. Say you have aging parents, it's usually the oldest daughter taking on the responsibility to care for them. So
mhm,
it's now I'm having the opportunity to tell the story of those women and how it is not fair sometimes that companies overlook them because they are a woman in a caregiving position and
mhm,
why that's not fair and why companies need to do better. So,
mhm.
sorry, I kind of went into a different arena,
No,
but
this is good. This is
it's
good.
also like amplifying those women's voices. And
Hmm.
there are women in the sandwich generation, but they're still important women. Sometimes they're in their career or they have to take a step back in their career. But they shouldn't have to. It should be fair. We should have the caregiving duties like more spread out, and more males should step up into these roles too. So
Hmm.
kind
I
of a
love
broader
that.
perspective of gender bias, but
Right.
what we do.
I love that you're able to connect it back to your mission, which again, I think
Yeah.
speaks to what we were talking about before about how clearly invested you are in the mission of CareYaya and the way that you've been able to really find your passion, your personal connection to it. Um, and yeah, I think that that brings up a really good point. Again, this theme that we've been talking about stories and allowing the your story to be heard while also empowering the stories of others, empowering other people around you to be able to share their stories too. Um, because when it comes to building that empathy that is so needed to be a leader, you have to be able to recognize that everybody has a different story and be open to learning them and hearing them and giving other people a chance to share them because that's the only way that we'll be able to gain a deeper understanding of the world that we live in because we live in our own little bubble, but
Yeah.
there are thousands of millions of other bubbles out there that we just have to learn about what goes on inside that bubble. So
So be a
I
good
love
listener.
that everything that you said.
Yeah. Listen to the women around you, listen to
Mhm.
their stories, and definitely amplify that message in any way, shape, or form.
Well, as we are nearing the end, this has been a wonderful conversation. Do you have any last thoughts about self-confidence or authenticity or any developing your ability to advocate yourself? Any last thoughts?
I mean, just stay true to yourself, create those genuine connections wherever you may be in life. And I feel like those are the essentials to having great communication amongst yourself and upon others. So be persistent.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time. This has been wonderful to talk with you, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.